So I'd like to call today's meeting, what is today's date? The 27th, May 27th at 7:32. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the approval of agenda, I don't believe we are adding anything tonight. Therefore, we don't need to go through the steps for that. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the May 6th minutes.
Jacob, that we approve the May 6th minutes.
Okay. Christina Ford, second.
Okay. Discussion, does anyone have anything that they would like to change on there? Oh, Dana?
I want to first of all thank Lisa for doing a phenomenal job with our minutes. I know it's even more difficult on a Zoom meeting. What I did notice is a lot of times it says board member said. So I think maybe if we could help Lisa a little bit by maybe announcing our names before we start to speak, so she can have a more an easier time addressing the minutes.
Okay.
That would be a request. And I know, Lisa, thank you for what you do. I know it's got to be difficult. So I want to help.
Anyone else?
This is Lisa. Thank you.
Perfect, Lisa. Okay. If you approve them, say aye, nay, or oppose, abstentions. And this is for the May 6th. Okay, so Plord?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Tony, we are currently approving the May 6th minutes. You would like to jump on there? Perfect. And I approve them as well. Motion passes. They are accepted as is. May 11th, please. I will entertain a motion.
Jacob Mari, I move that we approve the May 11th minutes.
Christina Ford, second.
Discussion, did anyone have anything to say or correct on those? Okay. Once again, if you approve, say aye, nay if you don't, or you can abstain. Christina?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
I'm aye as well, and I noticed Dana has her name on there now. She changed it. Perfect. The minutes for May 11th are accepted as is, no changes. And let's do the final one, May 13th. I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Jacob Mari, I move that we approve the May 13th minutes.
Christina Ford, second.
Discussion, did anyone have any changes? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, if you approve them, say aye, nay, or abstain. Christina?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
And Tony?
Aye.
Perfect. The May 13th minutes are accepted as is and no changes. Now we will move to the public participation. We will have Tony the timer for 2 minutes, and he will raise his hand or give you a vocal 30-second warning just so that you know. If we could have all the board members lower their hands so that we can have our public pop up to the top, that'd be great. And then we will go from there. Perfect. Let's go to Kate.
Hi there. Kate Vallow, 80 Tolland Green. Did you mean Kate Vallow?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Just want to make sure. I don't know who else is on. So first of all, I just wanted to thank all of you guys for everything that you're doing right now. I know these are really challenging times and volunteerism is really to be commended. So I appreciate that. And of course, I would like to also thank Dr. Willett for everything that he's been doing. These monumental tasks are nothing short of impressive. I wanted to share that I had the opportunity to attend the most recent FFC meeting, which I was appreciative of, and I felt really encouraged that it seems like all of the members were on the same page about wanting to learn about the value of one-to-one technology for this next fiscal year, and it seems like everybody was on the same page that it did seem like a valuable thing. And I was encouraged that the decision was made to commit CARES funding to the Chromebooks. And I think that the way I understand it is it seems like just a little bit more discussion needs to happen to determine where the rest of the funds will come from, because I don't think CARES covers, well, I'm sure that CARES doesn't cover all of them. And so I was really just respectfully requesting that discussion continue tonight. And I look forward to hearing your process about this. I really appreciate all of your thoughtfulness. Hopefully you received my letter about that as well. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate. At this time, I would like to open that up to anyone else that would like to have a comment from the public. If you could raise your hand. Oh, is it *9 on the phone?
*9 on the phone. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh,
Well, with all these meetings, you forget which program does what.
yeah, absolutely.
I'll just give it one more minute and then we'll go from there.
You do have 2 more people joining the meeting, 2 or 3 here. We are in public participation.
Correct. So if anyone just joining now, if they would like to have 2 minutes, they can at this moment. If you could raise your hand or *9. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to correspondence, which is Tony. You could please update us, and you are muted, so you will need to unmute yourself. There you go.
And I had such a speech. No, my apologies, Madam Chair. I did not get a chance to pull that report together. So if it pleases the board, I will just add this one to the next meetings and do one complete one.
I think that would be fine. Okay, let's move to points of information. Would anyone like to say anything at this time? You can raise your little blue hand or raise your actual hand. Okay, Kate.
I was just hoping to get some clarification about the one-to-one for next year. Just where are we at? What are we going to do to make sure that our kids have what they need?
Okay. Dr. Willett, would you like to answer that, or is it a part of the budget discussion that we're going to be having? That's what
We could hop to H1. When we get to H1, that'll definitely be part of it. That's part of the.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping. Okay. Well, then we will. Anyone else? I don't want to skip over anyone. Making sure. Okay, let's go ahead to our student representatives report and let us congratulate Fisher. I had no idea that he was the salutatorian for the class, so let's give him a little clap. I was very surprised. I opened my phone up and NBC had a little thing on there, so I was just like, look at this. I had no idea. So Fisher, if you could start, and we have Alexandria Costa as well. She's on there. Yes, okay.
Well, first off, I just wanted to start by saying thank you so much. Thank you so much. And really, I think being student representative is a big contributor to part of the success I've had academically and just being involved in the school system in general. That being said, we've got our next student representatives coming up soon this next year, because we finished our student council virtual elections. We did the Google Forms, and our student council president is going to be Erin Bitterini. She was our vice this or actually she was our treasurer this past year. Our vice president is Tegan Sexton. Our secretary will be Abigail Nussbaum. Our treasurer will be Callista Mrozinski. Our public relations representative will be Catherine Miller. And our Board of Ed student representatives, I'm so happy that our incumbent is also here, Alexandra Costa and Simmer Girl.
Thank you. That's exciting. Congrats to everyone. That's fantastic.
And then I think Alexandra, is she?
We know that health science and DECA elections are still underway, but I'm sure we can report back once we find more about those. NHS virtual inductions are coming up. I think tentatively the date is going to be next Thursday. And then NHS is also still offering tutoring virtually for anyone who needs it.
Yeah, so I believe you just, for any parents here, I believe you just contact the guidance department. You could also probably contact one of the NHS officers. It'll reach them somehow. Other than that, for NHS, Tolland United has been continuing every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with the exception of Memorial Day this past Monday. And one of those was actually really surprising to me. I know for the Discovery Lab, Dr. Willett, I know that's been a big project. There was an additional Minecraft learning experience, if you will.
Nice. That's great.
Nathan, our valedictorian, and Jacob Giroux were showing off today how there's a Minecraft recreation of Tolland High School. And I will tell you, it was absolutely gorgeous and spot on. It was
great.
Jacob Giroux, Jackson Kayward, Nathaniel Giuliano, Ian Korn, Brian Newfin, and Tommy Peasley. Just a silent virtual hand for all of their hard work. They
nice going, guys.
They went great on it, and it looks amazing. And other than that, we really just have thank yous to the Board of Ed, Dr. Willett, and school staff for not only working so hard to guarantee in as best a respect as possible a graduation for us seniors, and for establishing the task force, and just generally all of the work that's going in right now. It's honorable, and thank you. And especially to the Board of Ed and Dr. Willett for the much needed break this past weekend. And thanks from the teachers too. I know they really appreciate that as well. So thank you. And I love this sweatshirt.
It's nice seeing you in there.
Okay, that's it for us tonight.
Perfect. Does anyone have anything else, or we're good? Alexandra, you're all set? Perfect. Okay, thank you guys very much for everything, and look forward to meeting our next student rep, because we have Alexandria still, so that'll be good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the superintendent's report. If you want to start, Dr. Willett, with the H1.
Sure. So taking a look at H1, try to load this up here. This is basically the final iteration of the phase documents that I talked about in the beginning of March. Following the town council meeting on April 28th, the Board of Ed was provided a document the next day during a special meeting that outlined the three-phase approach, basically, that was trying to kind of set the stage for what the containers were that the board would be looking at with respect to end of year, and as we came into the end of this fiscal year. So throughout the month, following documents were provided to the Board of Education for review and posted on the website so everybody could see how it was progressing and evolving. So that link will give everybody a jump to the website should they need it. The four documents are the phase 1 document, mid-phase, that was May 6th, then phase 2, then the joint TC-BOE meeting document that was put there, and tonight is the final of those documents. So at this point, these kinds of considerations will be the major ones, and the only thing that will really fluctuate will be how much the board in its discretion decides should be in each particular container. So essentially, it just defines those containers for you as one, expenditures from fiscal year 20, remaining funds that can help mitigate fiscal year 21 budget impacts, as well as advantages and disadvantages. A educational reserve fund request is container 2. 3 is end of year expenditures to address needs and challenges, but that does not mitigate the fiscal year 21 budget. And container 4 is rollover of funds, or consideration for it be rollover of funds. So the board action required, or not required, but requested tonight would be just reviewing this again, getting a sense of what your 4 kind of considerations will be. And then I do have a request that, that in general terms, just let me go ahead with getting that curriculum office and some things done, or give your nod to them informally, so that we can make sure that that work is done. As you might recall in the last meeting that we did have, that was my number 1 thing of all of them, was being able to get that curriculum work achieved by June 30th. In this particular fiscal year, there's a lot we can do, and we really need to do it in prep for next year. So taking a look at the phase 3 document here, as I transition over to it, the first page is the same that you've seen on at least 2 of the phase documents. Once the information became available as to what the board's target was ultimately going to be, and the budget that was ultimately going to, or look like it would be set by the town council as, the 473,118 was what needed to be found. I have already gone over this page, so I will not go over it again unless anyone wanted me to. Scrolling to section 2 here is where the recommendations begin. These are not, they're not completely new, as you've noticed through the phase documents. These have just evolved, so they're roughly the same or similar to what I've talked about in the past, and these are very similar to what I talked about last week with the joint TCBOE meeting. First container here and first recommendation is that we make the following end-of-year acquisitions to mitigate the fiscal year 21 impacts. These items add up to $387,346.81. Recommendation 2 was what we had already talked about a bit, which is moving some funds to a medical account, that we'd make a May-June deposit, which would then, through, as we get into fiscal year 21, we would not have as much we would need to deposit, which would also mitigate. The advantages to doing the above, as I've talked about before, are that it reaches this figure needed without staff reductions and reaches the figure needed without union concessions, which I feel are 2 of the objectives of the board. Disadvantages are that technically what's happening here is that we are borrowing from fiscal year 22, and that those budget items will not be there. And so these items displayed on, I think, page 3 here indicate what we will need to be putting back fiscal year 22. So in fiscal year 22, we're going to have $147,029.81 roughly of expenditure that we would need to put back to maintain these programs and these things that we have taken, that have been used as a mitigation for fiscal year 21. So it's a little bit of borrowing from the future, but understanding that this is a horrible year, and doing any kind of damage in this year in any other way would be harmful. So that is the rationale. Recommendation 3 is transfer funds in accordance to Ordinance 86, Chapter 8. It would be requesting the transfer of funds, because at this stage, the board is actually making a request of the town council to transfer those funds as per Ordinance 86, Chapter 8. That would be $399,756 that would be requested. That would not actually happen until the 3rd quarter of next year, when the audit is complete, but it would help with special education, technology, and capital needs. And as I have said a number of times, so I won't belabor it here, I feel that it will be very, very important to have that for mitigation of some of the COVID-19 impacts that we expect to see for a variety of reasons. So once it is transferred and it is approved by the town council, the Board of Ed can then use those funds and does not then have to ask for further permission at that point. Once that money is in the account and has been transferred to the account, and in order, and quarter 3 occurs and all of that, then that is board funds to use for those categories. Recommendation 4 is that we acquire the following resources. Although they don't mitigate the fiscal year 21 impacts, they serve a very important purpose. And as I highlighted at the beginning, curriculum writing, actually that figure is about 18 now. There was one to add today. Central office conference room, as I've talked about. This room that I'm standing in right now does not accommodate 12 or 14 people very well. Some of you know that because of having meetings yourselves in here. And with what we expect to do for next year, we're probably going to have some rules on social distancing. So this needed to happen anyway from the standpoint of certain codes, but it helps a lot with doing meetings. We do all kinds of meetings here, as you know, from expulsion to other things. And the space, we would just flip flop. The back would become this conference area, and this room that I'm in right now would actually become the cubicles where some of the people are working. So that is helpful. Clorox 360 units, talked about that. Important to provide the district the capacity to clean the rooms effectively and with expedience. We may need to turn around. All classrooms may need to be cleaned within a 24-hour period every night, every day. So in order to do that, we need the right equipment. If we cannot do that, we may have some issues in terms of not being able to have school every day. So this is something to be proactive. Carousel and teleserve phone upgrade. I mentioned this before as well. It is a problem that needs to be solved, and so putting it on here helps solve this problem. Transferring it to capital, doing things like that, that just adds that burden back over. Ultimately, it's kind of moving the shell around, and so maybe if that were a request made in capital, that might not be funds that can be taken off of the request being made of the board. So right now we've got a couple capital projects to the tune of about 45 that we've taken off the table. If we put 38 back on the table, it would negate some of what was taken off, and it would have probably a negative impact. Town council might have to ask for more. So keeping it here and mitigating it, this actually does a service for the entire town and board. Because this upgrade needs to happen for reasons that I've described before that have to do with safety, security, and ultimately functionality, because we can't add any more phones to the system without it. And as you know, Birch Grove is coming online, and at least 20 phones would need to be added. We can't add them. So we can't continue with this. We've got to solve this problem. So it's here. And finally, as I mentioned before, Chromebooks, in my process of following what I believe to be what the board was doing and going through FFC, Chromebooks for one-to-one support of COVID would be funded through the CARES Act. About 46,000 would be funded by the CARE Act, and that would be used for this technology that would help. It's not the full amount of the 123, but it is an amount, and that we could apply that to keep that initiative moving and to help offset some of the issues that we potentially can have and expect to have next year. And those 184, we'd be looking to replace, obviously, the ones that we had talked about that were 4 generations old and we're not accepting updates and that kind of thing. So that is my understanding of where and I may be wrong, but that is my understanding of where I felt the board and FFC was going with it. And of course, I can be corrected on that, but that is what I thought was where people wanted to go. And ultimately, cost of those, 75.4. So, this leads us to recommendation 5. Recommendations 1 through 4 equate to 948,274, and recommendation 5 would be to roll over the remaining to the town. In this case, in the scenarios you see here, it's 168.26. I do want to highlight that this number can change. So for instance, we are slightly up today from the 1,109 today. As of this date, it is 1,138. So we've gone up about 30. That can change tomorrow. So in these days, as we go through the early days of June, second week of June or so, these things can fluctuate a bit as we do some work here. And so that figure is bound to change, but it should not change so significantly that the EOY and some ERF and all that can't be done. That should stay consistent enough that this document should have purpose and have meaning. But I did want to just put the asterisks on that because literally from the time that I wrote it to today, that figure changed, and we expect it to fluctuate a bit. So that's the last phase that I would give you in that plan that I had to give you, of phases. The objective was to provide as much information to the board as I possibly could within a very small amount of time with greatly changing circumstances. So these documents were, these 4 plus the one tonight, comprise the objective I had of trying to provide you with as much as possibly as I could, so that you could make some good decisions. So at that, I open it back up, and
let's go to any board members with the questions. If you could raise your hand, and we'll go through there. Okay, Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I just, as far as the K-8 Chromebook line, I guess a couple questions as far as we know when the CARES Act funds will come through, and then the remainder of the funding for that original item seems to be risky to me as far as being able to fund that. So I'd like a little clarification just on where the remainder of the funds after the CARES Act money is used.
Perfect.
It seems something that needs to be done quickly over the summer to be prepared for the fall.
So for me, again, I am attempting to provide what I believe to be what the board ultimately was looking for with respect to all of these items, finding the balance, in the meetings that I'm in. So at this point, I guess the way to directly answer that is that, this would allow us to continue, one-to-one with a specific group and help replace some of the 184. It doesn't allow us to do the K-8 initiative that was part of that before, with the understanding that perhaps as some other funding source becomes available, that can be pursued. So this is a way forward at this moment in time based on what I believe was the information that I gathered from, the meetings that we've had, both subcommittee and board.
So the 46,000 from the CARES Act will only fund part of the 184 that are in bad shape. Is that right?
It would take care of, that would be the first place that we would go with that, and then ultimately to look to support the one-to-one initiative. Again, keep that going, which I'll be plugging. The June 11th, we've set up another instructional rounds for you as a board, and so I'm hoping you'll be able to participate. But it will be a panel of teachers talking about one-to-one, specifically a one-to-one, so that you can get a good picture of what that is.
Okay, but that's, sure. No, I'm looking forward to that. Maybe I will defer my question then to the chair of FFC, because that's where the discussion happened.
Hello. Okay. So as far as the one-to-one, I think we had discussed that we've got several options kind of once we know exactly what we need. And I think that's kind of the biggest up in the air question is we don't exactly know what the fall is going to look like. So I'm not sure if we know the answer right now is definitely to be providing Chromebooks for K through 8. I know that it's something that we need to discuss, but I do believe we have several sources of funding. We could always take some out of the Education Reserve Fund. We would be able to take it out of the money that we are putting into the COVID Emergency Fund, assuming, of course, that the council accepts our recommendation to do that with no restrictions. So I do think that we have plenty of options for that funding, the additional $78,000. I'm not sure if right now the answer is to use the end of the year funds to pay for that until we know exactly what the fall is going to look like, until we know exactly what we're going to need. So I don't know if that answers your question, Karen, but that's kind of where I was looking.
Well, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable making decisions based on assumptions, because we do need these, and we've even talked about the 184 that are in bad shape, and we're not even funding that. So,
well, the 184 would come directly out of the CARES money, and I think everybody has agreed that the 184, which is I think exactly $46,000, I believe everybody has agreed that that 184 needs to be replaced no matter what. So if the CARES funds don't come through, then I would think we absolutely have to take that out of some of the end of the year money before we would turn it back over to the town.
okay, no, that's fine. I would like a clear plan so I know what I'm deciding on.
No, and I agree with you. I wish we had a clear plan, but I don't know.
We did have a clear plan. It was here as part of the initial document that.
But just so the conversation is not, just to be clear, so when we talk about it, we have a very clear one-to-one plan for the district, a committee that works together to sustain it and to plan for it. Our conversation right now seems to be specifically focused on budget and how to support it with budget. So I just wanted to make that clarification, because we have a very clear one-to-one approach, which you'll find out more about on June 11th, and I would encourage you all to come. But in terms of funding, that one thing to keep in mind is that as we're engaging these, we probably would have to get cases for them too, so that they, can't be destroyed but right now that's where it appeared that we were landing on it.
And my reference to clear plan was to funding, not to technology plan.
Right. I'm sure it was. I just wanted to clarify, because there's some people working really hard, and I just want to make sure.
Technology is something that goes past, needing it for reopening school.
Right.
And we should, unfortunately we weren't able to do the rounds at the middle school, to validate the decision, but I'm still uncomfortable with maybe here, maybe there, when we have the ability to fund it.
So the board has the discretion to take any of these pieces and move them around as it sees fit. Again, these are what I put together based on the month and the conversations we've had this month from subcommittee and committee. So, I am at the service of the board. You just let me know as a board what you want to do, and I will, do that. But right now, these are the containers, so to speak, or the considerations. I made them recommendations because I said I would end with, recommendations, and I usually don't sit on the fence on things. So I will make recommendations to you just so you have, I have a sense of things. And, as I speak about these tonight, I feel like, obviously things like curriculum writing and so on, I want to make sure that we have that because of what we need to get the curriculum prepared. And my ears are open for other things. I do think, your carousel piece or teleserve, that's been on there enough to say that, we can't really kick this can any further down. Someone's got to take action on it. So if it's not included in what we do, it's got to get back on somewhere. And we, as of this coming month in June, that price jumps up. It leaps up to probably $50,000 now, because this is a lock that we had on it that I requested an extension on that lock, and that lock was extended, but we're coming to the end of that extension. So, and Chromebooks, obviously, my feelings about Chromebooks. We need them, and I think when you guys go to the June 11th workshop or instructional rounds, you'll see how profoundly important these are to education today. I kind of equate them the difference between a horse and a car. It's not that we weren't traveling. It's just that with the car, you can do an incredible amount of things you could not do with the horse. This is a similar thing in terms of how technology is advancing us in education. So they're crucial. But
so after June 11th, then do we have the ability as a board to say, yes, we need what you initially asked for?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you're going to, well, this is me setting the stage for the discussion for the board with the containers and my recommendations. And then ultimately, I'm here all ears to hear what what your direction is going to be for the rest of it.
That was all I had. That was my only concern. I'm agreeable to all the other items that are necessary, and we need to get going on these things. But I felt that the Chromebook piece was also a necessity. They need to be ordered. I don't know if we have to do software or other things involved with them, but it doesn't seem as easy as waiting.
Yeah, we do and will have to jump on that once this budget is passed. We definitely do immediately begin action on acquisition and getting things set up with all of these. But
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Let's go to Rini.
Hi. Okay, so I had a couple questions. I just, in response about the Chromebooks, I will say that I feel actually a little bit more comfortable with this direction, that we're going to replace the 184 that we definitely know we need to replace. We're going to hold off a little bit and see what the state comes back with in terms of our needs there. I've always had a hesitation about buying the Chromebooks right now. They have a fairly short shelf life, and we just really don't know what the state's going to come up with for reopening plans and so forth. And I feel like we need to, kind of hang on to that money for now and see where we're going to need it. So I am actually pretty comfortable with that. And I agree with Griffin that we, we have a few other sources should it come back that we, need to buy more. So I'm personally pretty comfortable. And it appears from the FFC meeting, we actually didn't have the phone upgrade in, and it looks like that's sort of what the offset is now, is that we're definitely including that. So that's sort of where that, extra money that we had initially said we would, purchase the Chromebooks has gone to, and Dr. Willett has explained why. So I'm comfortable with that. I did want to ask Dr. Willett two questions. One is, because we have this going forward, $147,000, area that we're going to have to make up. I know I've asked about this before, but there's some tables and chairs in the budget. That seems like it would be more of a one-time thing where we wouldn't need to roll that forward. And the number two question is, when we originally really kind of started talking about doing some of these things, I thought you had said that there was some of these programs that we would be able to buy like a 3-year subscription to, so that it wouldn't be just like a 1 year, and that we would be able to extend that out. So I wondered if these are those. They don't appear to be, because they're now showing up again in the next year's budget, but are there different ones that we could purchase that would give us that more 3-year type thing, so we would again sort of nip away at this 147 for next year?
Yeah, for some of them, and one in particular in my mind, you could go 3 years, but the cost of it is trying to get to a certain number right now. The cost of it was not going to, it was going to be bigger. So it would be something that, I'm not sure what the support would ultimately be. But there is one, at least, that I can think of that could be a 3-year thing. That number would go up, and we'd have to adjust them. But most of the rest of them, this grouping, we can't do too much of that with, because they're like Literacy How, that might not have a 3-year lifespan. but we do need it next year for the 70. Sorry, I'm not in the right place here. If I scroll down, we won't need it in even 3 years from now, but we definitely need it for fiscal years 2022. So there's one that I can think of, but that's actually also not on here in terms of what you'd have to make up either. I didn't include any of that, so it wasn't, we can work a little bit with that. I can do that, but it won't make a massive difference with this particular scenario that we have right now. But it's also more expensive, and so I didn't want to drain all of the funds either, because I know we want to use them for some other things too, including, I don't know what your feelings were about recommendation 5, but anything that goes up in one area takes away from something you could provide in another area, and this seemed to provide the balance that people were looking for.
Couldn't we just offset it with that, the amount we were going to kind of do against the I don't want to call it health insurance, recommendation number 2, the deposit against the district medical account? I mean, so for example, you would just lower B there to, by X amount, so you'd net out to the same. You wouldn't be lowering what you're sending off in our, unrestricted fund that we're.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it all depends on which kind of thing I want to do. But there is one that I could do that with and add it to this list potentially. But I guess I can do anything that you're looking for. Those little tweaks in there won't make a big difference with respect to these, but I can tweak anything.
It might help you with your 147, like for, not you, I mean, all of us for next year, where we're a little less of a bar to overcome. But, it was just a question. I didn't know. And like I said, the $10,000 on the tables and chairs that we've talked about several times, just maybe we can consider putting those in and not something that you have to overcome, maybe take out something else here, whatever it is. But that was all I wanted to kind of bring up and my comfort level on the Chromebooks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go to Jacob.
Thank you, Ashley. So overall, part of the FFC meetings and all these other meetings, I think that this document that Dr. Willett's given us is something I'm pretty comfortable with. I think it balances a lot of issues that we're trying to deal with. And after last week's town council meeting, I'm kind of happy with the feedback that we got. I'm pretty comfortable with the direction where we're going. And I think that with the town council finalizing its plans within the next couple of weeks, we should be able to move up on this stuff. Then as far as the Chromebooks go, I'll reiterate what Rini and some others have said. I'm on board with replacing ones we need to replace due to obsolescence, so that we can continue to maintain distance learning if need be with the number we have now. As some board members have pointed out, there's a lot of uncertainty with what the state might be sending down the pipe as far as mandates go. And we just don't know. And, you pair that with kind of the financial situation we're in right now. I want to approach getting those extra Chromebooks very cautiously. I'm looking forward to maybe doing those instructional rounds, but, I think if we have a plan to use it, we need to have a very smart plan on how to pay for it and exactly what role they might have. So I feel that just getting the replacement ones at the moment with CARES Act funds would be the best approach. I did have a question, though, for Dr. Willett with regards to CARES Act funds, and maybe you've covered this and I just forgot. But I know that there's sometimes a lag as to when we get that funding. When would we get that funding if we get it?
I think we're going to get that fairly soon. I'm right now, the business manager and I haven't been able to connect on it. So, I think the other thing that we might end up doing is, we would spend, assuming we're getting that, we would spend funds and then recover those funds once it arrives. So we go negative perhaps in a line and then just fill that line back when we got the funding in. So, we would be able to, assuming the government fulfilled its obligation and what it said it would do, we could spend those funds at the outset of the fiscal year and just go negative or go lower in that line, put it back when it arrived. I have confidence that we'll receive that.
Okay. And just one other quick clarification. I was just noticing up in the agenda, for your desired board action, you're under general approval for curriculum and office allocations. So that would just be items A and B for tonight, and we could wait a little bit on the other ones. I know you kind of want all of them, but I was just...
Yeah, I mean, and I just kind of going back to the kind of highlight what I've said, I just need to I will want to get that curriculum stuff, done. So obviously, the sooner we can commit to sort of what we're doing, the more everybody understands where we're at. But for those items, I need to know from the board, are we good on that so I can move? Because if I wait till it's one of those ironies of time. If I wait until say mid-June, then I lose the opportunity to do a lot of it because we won't have the time. So yeah.
All right. I'm comfortable with both of those items, by the way. So
yeah, thank you.
The floor.
You're all set, Jacob?
Yep.
Okay. Christina.
Okay, I have a couple questions. First of all, thanks to FFC and Walt for the tremendous amount of work that went into all of this. I feel like I've never understood a budget better, so thank you. The only request I'd have for FFC is just with these end of year purchases, it was always a hot button in the past, just knowing what line items are dropping and what's going up because of, whether it's savings and then we're approving these end of year purchases with the direction of Walt. I'd just like to know where they're going so I can follow it. But that was it on that. My question, I guess in follow up to what Rainey had asked, the $147,000, if Literacy How is a 2-year contract, I wouldn't be opposed to paying for that 2-year contract now if that, reduces that hole by, cuts it basically in half. With the end of year funds instead of rolling over the money to the town. Just throwing that out there. I don't know if that would make our lives easier or if we really do, want the COVID relief fund in the sense of just keeping that money aside for whatever surprises are thrown our way. So just a thought there. In regards to the 1-to-1, I guess I was always under the assumption the 1-to-1 was for 6 through 8 and not K through 8. So I think that's where my disconnect with that is. I'm in full support really of what it can do for the 6 to 8 grades. Maybe it's just me, I really want my son to physically go to kindergarten next year and not learn at home on a Chromebook. So maybe whether that's I just need more education on what these kids would be doing with the Chromebooks in that grade or in the the lower levels. Maybe that's something the curriculum committee could take a look at. Or sorry, I'm just reading my notes here. And then June 11th, the presentation, the rounds are for the 1-to-1 for 6 to 8 and not necessarily K through 8. I guess that's my question in a long-winded way.
Yeah, just to work backwards from that, to understand 1-to-1, no matter what grade we're in, it's a good thing to come to. But to speak to the point, yeah, at this point, there's no K teachers that have done that per se, but just to get a sense of it, because it is a profound difference. I mean, just so people, it gives you a sense of, the idea of screen time, for instance, just to make a brief comment on it. The old space shuttle had switches. The new spacecraft that's going up or was going to go up, but the weather canceled it, has no switches. It has screens. The screens aren't the thing that's there's the bad thing. Screens can be really good things when used in the right way. So Chromebooks are something that are used in a way that they're true learning devices, and they're really powerful for all grades, really. But understanding those feelings, that's why I think it's good to keep having these conversations. About literacy, how? I was smiling because ironically I misspelled literacy. Or maybe just, which I should not point out. Maybe I'll just go by.
You called yourself out.
I did. I was looking at it going, oh God, it's on that line item, and I misspelled literacy, which is.
So how much is it going to cost to spell it correctly?
It's just awful. Yeah, I know. So I apologize in advance, or apologize for that. I think it's just trying to find the right balance with respect to, each of these containers was balanced to provide something for everyone, so to speak, including having some element of rollover for either COVID relief funds, and one container that goes up takes away from another container and that kind of thing. Literacy, how? Right now, this is my strong feeling talking to the director of People Services and our curriculum supervisor for ELA, that this is what would be needed. But to invest in it, basically, remember that essentially we're mitigating funds in fiscal year 21. We generally don't, our budget planning process does not include mitigating certain things well beyond that, but so in a way, some software might have a subscription. Literacy How doesn't have a subscription. Literacy How is a consulting service. So 3-year out stuff would probably be a consideration for software, because you get 3-year licenses sometimes. That's how those things come sometimes. Literacy How is a consulting service. That's a little bit more tricky with respect to mitigation, a mitigation of maybe one fiscal year, but that one might be a tough one to mitigate multiple with. And I can talk more about that, offline if you want.
That's okay. I was throwing it out there. But no, I think this is great. The curriculum writing, I'll give you the thumbs up on that. And I'd love to hear what you were doing in the curriculum committee. Sounds great. I'm done. Thanks, Ash.
No problem. Let's go to Tony.
So, Dr. Willett, just a couple quick questions from the perspective of this amount that we're going to need to put back, and looking at the budget from a multi-year perspective. You said just a little bit ago that there's a committee within the district that's working on implementing one-to-one and really doing good work in that plan forward. Is that plan articulated in our original budget submission, where we'd see it this last year, next year, the year after that, we'd see at least those buckets requested?
Well, so when we had the COVID situation hit us, it turned everything sort of upside down. And so, what's strange about things like that is it had obviously a cost to it, which is human suffering and obviously a lot of stress and a lot of adjustments with families. What it also did, though, is, invention is the mother of necessity. It put us in a much better strategic place to make a massive leap forward in this effort that we otherwise would not have been in the position to make. So it's in a way, it's forced us into a situation where we had to implement online aspects of things much more, ubiquitously. But it has also provided, if we returned tomorrow, let's say we ended up having some kind of situation where we were able to do the K-8 item for the 123. If we were able to return, in weeks after that was implemented, we would be much, much farther down the road. Not all the way down the road, but we would have made a massive advance in a very small amount of time. And we would have been able to support it much better because of what we have built for infrastructure and capacity now in some teachers. Having said that, the one-to-one 6th grade teachers are the most proficient with it. And then second to that would be another group that's much larger that has reached sort of a level 2 in that. It's just the opportunity to leap forward in this situation is strong. So that June 11th really will be important in seeing the distinction between what is online learning as a term and what is one-to-one learning as a term.
But I guess as far as the one-to-one, if I'm understanding you correctly, I would not have seen it in the pre-COVID budget submission.
Because yes, true. Because I wouldn't have imagined in any sense that we would have had this many people trained on, for instance, the Google Suite. Knowing how to use Google Meets, knowing how to use Hangouts, knowing how to use all of those apps. I would have never imagined that in a span of 3 months, we could have done this mass training of all of these people in that product line.
I'm with you. I think I'm interested in the plan, in the group, that you said that's putting together this plan and this tempo, and how that aligns with the year-to-year implementation.
Sorry.
And how that relates to this is obviously within the next year, whatever budget is approved in the next couple of weeks, as a team, we're going to have to spend the next year really looking at our implementation plans and figuring out how those costs show up so that when we enter next year's budget cycle, none of this is a surprise. So when we're talking about the team that you've got working on one-to-one, I guess I'd be interested in seeing that plan line over a calendar from a fiscal perspective. But, okay, second question. Do we have, so the money for the Chromebooks that we're looking to allocate at this point, my understanding is to replace, the ones that are obviously malfunctioning, or I think, as you said, will not accept updates. What's our plan for the disposal of the units that will be replaced?
We will try to sell them back, but they probably won't be worth much at all. So we would put them into service until the moment that they died. So we would put them back into service in certain functions that weren't required to work every moment. So for instance, if you had one that was not taking updates anymore, you might put that into, a corner of a library to test something. It would be our test one. But they would be, they would be used until the moment that they either completely electronically fizzled out, or we would ultimately try to sell them back to some surplus company. And we have done that from time to time, and they put money back into, your fund if you do that. The other option is you can surplus like any other old equipment, like a computer. Right now, if we had 8086s, we would surplus them to the town. And the town would decide what they wanted to do with them, like any other item that becomes, so old that it's unusable. So in the final end of all of it, if it became, one of the antiquated pieces, which some of them may end up being at some point, you can turn them over to the town in the process for doing that.
So at least for a short and probably undetermined amount of time, the net amount of Chromebooks that we have usable is actually going to go up.
Well, yeah, I would say in actual executable tactical terms, that's not true, in that the 184 that need to get offline, they need to come out of service for crucial pieces. Like, I would not want to give that to a child and say, go ahead, here's your unit for the year, because they couldn't rely on that unit. And at crucial moments in time, it may fail them, and that would be unacceptable. So,
and make no mistake, I'm in no way arguing against the replacement of those 184. I can see the need. I'm simply wanting to make sure that we're not just, being somewhat facetious, just tossing these in the trash, that we've got a plan and we're going to get benefit. And if we do, can we get benefit that saves us money in other areas?
Yeah, we will always try. Our first step, even with textbooks, our first step is there someone else who would acquire this for aftermarket anything? Even melting down. We even actually use, there's some surplus steel items that turn over to the town, and they decide how they want to handle that or who they might want to sell it to. So there's a process that we would follow for that. But yeah, I would say that I would not actually put these back into service in any sense of a reliable thing, you know.
Did you say there's a process?
There is a process for surplusing all equipment, including technology equipment, to the town.
So after this, can you point me at that?
Yeah.
Offline?
Yep. Sure. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, let's move to Dana.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I have a few questions for Dr. Willett. I guess, I know since we've talked a lot about the Chromebooks tonight and online versus one-to-one, right? So, you know, Chromebooks are paramount to the success of our students. I guess my question would be the 46,000 that, I guess my first question, the 46,000 that covers for the CARES Act, how many Chromebooks of the 184 does that cover?
Well, without any of the cases or protection, it would be roughly 184 if we went 250 per unit. If you're including, if it's a certain kind of deployment, we would probably need to pick up cases somewhere to be able to keep them in service in certain ways, you know. But straight unit cost, you're looking at that would be about 184 at 46.
The 46 would be just for the units itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As they are priced, you know, at this moment in time, so to speak. If there was some other, you know, obviously that fluctuate a little bit.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I was missing numbers in there. The Chromebooks that are currently dispersed, and those 184 will be replacing, I guess, who will get the Chromebooks and who won't? So I guess my question is whether or not we're still doing distance learning or whether or not we're in the classroom. Couple things come to mind with who gets the Chromebooks and how they be distributed or who won't. One is if we're in the classroom and we have all the different guidelines with safety and health and sanitizing and such, we have to be cognizant that if I'm student A that shares a Chromebook with student B in school, there's got to be a process with purchasing things to sanitize them and clean them and ensure that the safety when they're sharing these tools.
Right.
That's one question. The other question would be is if we're home and I'm a current family that's using iPads, and that's good for a short period of time like we've had, but if we was sustained working from home or doing distance learning at home, in whatever capacity that might be, some people aren't going to be able to sustain using their current iPads or their other laptops and such, which would lead me to think that we would need more Chromebooks than these 184. Sorry, it was kind of two questions in one, Dr. Watt.
No problem. Just trying to remember the first one. That you're not, you're not really going to ever be at a point probably where you have too many of these units at this moment in time. We wouldn't reach that space for a while, but and there is one-to-one is an evolution of the use of the technology. And the idea with one-to-one is literally it is one. It is that child's, like the child has or a young adult has a book or a physics book, they have the Chromebook, and that for cleaning purposes, you know, if it's theirs, we wouldn't, you know, would be like cleaning their textbooks every day. If it's their one to use, then we don't necessarily have to wipe it down, you know, for multiple uses between each child because it's that child's to use. Having said that, I mean, obviously with the COVID-19 situation, anytime there's going to be any intermixing of anyone, we're going to be paying close attention to that. And there's going to be some things we need to do in the coming year procedurally that would be different. But to that end, we, you know, one-to-ones don't require the kind of cleaning per se. The person cleans their unit, their own equipment, so to speak. And we would encourage that, obviously, in a number of ways to keep it working well. But your second question, I'm sorry, where did that kind of?
It kind of led to you know, if we continue distance learning or continuity of learning at home in whatever capacity, whether that be, I mean, I've heard made mention of possibilities of us being home in the fall, possibility of students coming X amount of days and then doing X amount of days at home, those kind of things. So if in fact that's actually comes to fruition in whatever capacity, there are families in town that are currently utilizing their own tools, i.e. their parents' laptops, iPads, different things like that, which in the emergency that we were in, it was kind of reactionary and people are doing what they can so that their kids can continue their learning. However, if it's something that we need to sustain and continue to sustain for a period of time, I don't know if that would be possible or for some.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point because, you know, school districts, the way that this is headed in the long game is that parents aren't supposed to have to buy things that should be offered to provide a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. So for instance, we couldn't turn around and say, buy all of the texts, you know, but we could say, you know, buy pens, buy your child a pen, you know, make sure your child comes with a pen and a notebook, but we can't say, make sure your child comes with, you know, all of these textbooks. And so at some point in time, these devices will become like those textbooks. It's going to be and that time is coming close because the state's had to reevaluate a lot of the things that it's looking at. And so I do anticipate that these devices will play a major role in next year for a variety of reasons, which is why I really want to keep us moving in the direction of getting on board with one-to-one. But eventually, these are going to become like the texts. I mean, it's going to be something that you cannot really be educating people without them. And that day is not that far away. So I do expect that people will, you know, one way or another, these have to become part of the landscape. And if one could start to make the argument that that these devices, like textbooks themselves, are something we're expected to be being, you know, providing somewhere in the spectrum of, you know, the next, you know, few years kind of thing. That's, again, I keep deferring back to June 11th. I think it's important. It'll give you a good perspective on how that and why that might be the case.
Okay, thank you. I just have a few more things. Ashley and Dr. Willett, I guess some of the things, and I understand the need for the 184, and as other people have said, 110% I support that, and we need to make sure that we're properly funding that, and I think utilizing the CARES Act is great. My concern would be the cases in the security that's needed for those, especially if it goes into the littlest one's hands. We know that they're not the how should I say it nicely? They're tough on things sometimes. So we need to be cognizant of that. And I guess my concern is saying we can find stuff elsewhere without a targeted where that elsewhere is. And especially because we're coming up on next week is June. It's the end of the year, and then fall is going to be upon us shortly. So getting those supplies needed is paramount. But I guess it's, you know, we need to make sure that we're aware of a lot of different things. Like, I guess planning for our continuing education going forward and growing our education is really what we need to be thinking about as well. I think COVID has kind of made it extremely clear that, like you said, the Chromebooks are their new books. And no matter what capacity they're going to be in the classroom or at home, these Chromebooks are going to be needed, and is kind of the wave of the future versus, you know, we used to be on rotary dial phones and now we're on cell phones in my back pocket wherever I go. So I think that, you know, due to COVID, it's kind of brought the need a little bit more to light. I mean, I know you've talked about one-to-one in previous years and through our budget process as well. I just think that we need to talk about not just reacting and being proactive for COVID scenarios, but we need to be proactive for continuing to, you know, go forward and progress in our growing education. I guess that's more of a statement than a question. my other thing is there are people who purchase Chromebooks in their homes, but then they don't have the security and the device security that the Chromebook that would be provided from the school system, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's why it's good to have a plan and a system where these devices are our school, because we do have much more control over the device and how it interacts with the Wi-Fi and the network, and increasingly screening. A lot of screening software and things like that are becoming a part of what school districts use. Which is a conversation for, again, probably sometime when you want to devote more time to it. Maybe even June 11th, I could extrapolate on that a bit. But it's much better to have them be, issued by district, in my opinion, for a variety of reasons.
Okay. And last question, and kind of off of Chromebooks, but goes back to literacy how. I think it's paramount to invest in it now. If I understand literacy how correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it targets reading issues with our youngest readers and through the younger grades, all the way up to target issues with dyslexia and future interventions with higher special education numbers and such. But I think it's going to be cost avoidance in the future, utilizing literacy how for cost avoidance and special ed costs in the future. We're targeting to take care of it right off the giddy up, I guess, is the best way. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and I was definitely, yes, thank you. It is our moral, legal, and ethical obligation to provide a program like that, and it through that's the first consideration, and obviously what goes along with that is, if we are preparing kids well, and we are doing what needs to be done, then you don't have students who get down, many years down a line and are in a situation where dyslexia and things like that are having an impact in ways that we could have avoided. So that kind of program is crucial, as are a few other, a battery of our other programs that are meant to live up to what we need to do, and that does provide avoidance of cost, because when you're living up to what you're supposed to be doing, you don't have to make up for it afterwards, and that's the key there. So.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry I monopolized so much time, everyone. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Dr. Willett.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Let's go to Kate next.
Thank you. So I have a couple things. Thank you for all the work that everybody's put into this, Dr. Willett, especially. It's like you're a ninja. So, Tony, we do have a disposal of obsolete or surplus equipment materials policy. It's number 3040. So just answering that.
It took my thunder.
Oh, dude. Sorry. Okay, so the one-to-one technology plan, I know that exists out there. I was trying to look for it while I was listening to you guys chat, but I'm sure you have it available. So if you could make that available on our dashboard, Dr. Willett, that would be fantastic.
Which thing? The one-to-one?
A one-to-one technology plan. I was seeing it previously. I just couldn't lay my fingers on it. So
okay, let me dig that.
Yeah, I mean, not a rush. But how many students do we have enrolled in the district right now, Dr. Willett? Even about an approximate would be.
Yeah, 2,343. I have to go back and look at the exact number today. Hold on.
Okay. No, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
And how many of those students are currently using Tolland Public Schools devices?
Well, I mean, right now you've got 800 that were deployed as a result of COVID. You have about 200 that were already out there because of one-to-one, and the other 200 are deployed to staff that are in service of students in a variety of ways, certain special education, things like that. So those 1,200 are roughly deployed in that manner.
So 1,200 of our students have devices?
No, it's about, right now, I would say 1,000 of our students have devices, 200 of which are one-to-one, 800 are the COVID online deployment, and 200 are staff. That's just rough numbers.
Totally. So if we're guessing about 1,000 have a device, then that we're looking at about 43% of the kids that live in Tolland that have a Tolland Public Schools device, which I am not comfortable with. So it's my experience that the majority of the children in the town currently are using their own personal devices, and families are making do with those devices. This is not a long-term solution. And these devices, whether they're iPads or tablets or desktop computers, are not optimized for student interface, and they can add more stress to an already stressful situation with homeschooling. I'm sure we can all speak to technological frustration when we have had to make do with our phone instead of our computer for whatever, things that we've had to do. I'm very concerned that we are not being equitable with our educational access, whether we are talking about distance learning or in-classroom learning or some combination thereof. Devices and internet have made distance learning possible. Do we have any knowledge, Dr. Willett, other than anecdotal stories about whether all of our students have the requisite tools to safely and consistently access their education?
Well, I'm sorry. In terms of, I don't have any information that would suggest that we are able to adequately cover that entire base. No. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, it is. And I'm wondering if it would behoove us to find that out. Does it, I got a request from a friend today who said, hey, is there any Chromebooks left because my iPad is dead? So is there any way for us to find out what folks' access is? Because we're not just talking about, the people that have 15 devices. We're talking about some families that may have to share one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to be able to survey our families somehow. I don't know how that's possible, but I think that's really important to make sure that we're ensuring equitable access for all families.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just wanted to point out that, if you've reviewed the recent guidance, it's a very real possibility, everybody, that we're not going to go back to brick and mortar as we've understood it previously. When we go back to school, it's going to be some combination of something. We don't really know. And so, there's just that possibility as kids interact with one another that they're, we don't want them touching the same device, simply put. And the last thing I have to say, and then I have a question, it's probably more of a rhetorical one, but it's really, really, really incumbent upon us who are preparing the learners of the future, just like that little one that just came into Christina's camera line there, that we have to get away from talking about one-to-one as a computer to do work. It's the learning tool, and it's the gateway for students to access their educational experiences. And as a board, I ask us to ask ourselves, how do we bolster our learning program from soup to nuts, using these devices as this gateway, because they're not going anywhere. So that's kind of my piece.
Thank you, Kate. I just, I had a couple questions too to just ask Dr. Willett. Now that Clorox 360 cleaning systems, are we trying to get the FEMA reimbursement for that? How does that?
We might. We might get FEMA reimbursement. However, I wouldn't count on that. I wouldn't count on it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And it would take a while to get it, so I don't think you're going to have an offset on that. I don't think you're going to see that coming back necessarily within the fiscal year.
Okay. And the other question I just wanted to say too, I understand for the 184 Chromebooks, and I definitely think that we're probably going to need more than that. Whether or not we need one-to-one for everyone, I'm not 100% sold on that idea, because I do know like my kids would be fine. They have their own. There's a lot of other families that have their own. At the same time, I know there's families who would definitely get one because they didn't have one, or they are sharing one, as other people said, or they have an iPad versus Chromebook. So I definitely think that it'll be helpful just to have those conversations. But the other question I had, though, do you want, in terms of your recommendation for the curriculum writing and the conference room, do you want to do a quick straw poll for those to get the go-ahead to make sure it's fine? What were you looking for, Dr. Willett?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense because I want to move forward, that the board was, good with that, because it's a chunk in there. So a straw poll is fine. However, Madam Chair wants to handle it. I just did want to be able to proceed, understanding that the board's direction was that they were okay with me proceeding on, these items and whichever of these items.
4, correct?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and, am I able to do the straw poll, or would you have to do the straw poll? I forgot how the straw poll
No,
is.
you as chair can do the straw poll.
Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and just do a straw poll in supporting of the recommendation number 4 for Dr. Willett. I will go around and just ask everyone and just see where your head's at. And this is once again for recommendation 4, which is the curriculum writing, the central office, and the cleaning system. Correct?
Yeah, well, and if you want to consider, there's D and E. There's D in there. E is going to be by, CARES Act, but D is the last one in that line of things that actually has a dollar amount that we would need to dedicate now.
Okay, so we'll just do recommendation 4 of all the A through E. Christina?
Yes.
Kate?
Sorry, yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jacob?
Yes.
Rini?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Tony?
No.
Shocker.
It'll be yes as well. So I'm not sure exactly for the straw poll, but you have the majority to do that. Okay.
Okay. Okay, we will do that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
If we could go to H2, Board of Ed goals updates.
Yes. So if we take a look at essentially, this is very similar, if not the same, to agenda item from a meeting or two ago, just highlighting the steps in the process. What I was hoping we could do tonight was just confirm that on the 24th, we're going to do step 1. I just want to make sure that we're all, that I am understanding correctly that we can do step 1 on June 4th. And you may recall an email on May 19th to the board asking for A, the days you plan to take vacation for the months of June, July, and August, and then B, your preferred times to meet on the days that you are available. Those 2 pieces of information going to Jen Palumbo, and she would be then compiling those for us. But I'm not sure everybody was able to do that. So I don't have the other dates to offer to you right now because I don't think everybody was able to get that feedback to Jen yet. That's my impression. So at least tonight we can say, if it's okay, if it pleases the chair and others, that June 24, we're going to go ahead with step 1. That would be a good thing to know so that I can make sure we're ready to roll on that.
Okay. So at this point,
and I know, Ashley, you're going to insist on a doodle poll. I know, but I have to tell you that no.
No, I think that that's great because I'll really
just kidding.
If you block it, that's fine, and you just know. So if everyone could just make sure that they get that email in to Jen Palumbo, that would be greatly appreciated. You can put your hand up if you haven't, and be realistic. How many have not sent an email to Jen Palumbo? Are we all honest?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm just thinking it maybe.
Late, but I did it.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm sure she'll have enough then that she'll be getting back to you shortly with the dates. I think I just wanted to make sure 24th is okay with everyone. I don't see, raise your hand if it's not, so we can just go ahead and schedule that, make sure everything's fine.
Yeah, that's good. That just helps me. We can get to the 24th and the rest of it will work out.
Perfect. Is there anyone with a concern for the 24th? Raise your hand now or forget about it. You better show up. Okay, so that's fine, Dr. Willett.
All right, good news. That's good. Moving on to H3. H3 is superintendent's evaluation. We've talked a little bit about this last time. We talked about the waiver. I said I would reset up the timeline. So this is a adjusted timeline, essentially. June 10 meeting, we would be adding the executive session, and I would be doing the presentation for the board. So between now and June 10, I would be preparing that document on those materials. Between June 11 and June 15, in the comfort of your homes and offices, which I'm sure you're highly familiar with your homes and offices these days, you're reviewing the material, and ultimately you're submitting a form, this Google form that we create for the purpose, to provide ratings for each of these areas, and the documents obviously will help inform some of those things in terms of what was done in each of these particular areas of rating. And you'll notice that I have provided the board those documents so you can kind of look at what's used typically, and that we've been using. And then June 16 to 23, meeting between the board chair and vice chair, or whatever we mutually agree upon ultimately, and myself. And we go over some of the results there, and we talk about whatever questions have arisen, any kind of an additional narrative that may be needed would be provided. And then ultimately on June 24th, they meet in the executive session, or we would meet again in executive session before or after the meeting there to come to a determination on what the final ratings are ultimately at. And the chair, usually vice chair, and whoever we ultimately agree on that, is going to be the team that writes up whatever narrative. There'll be a numerical rating, but there'll also be, or typically is, some kind of narrative comments, and those will be completed at that time. And they submit the final document to me on June 24th. And then June 25th, I meet with those parties. In this particular case, it would probably be chair and vice chair to talk about that the next coming year with respect to elements of the contract that are part of that. And in this conversation and all of this, there is a 3-year kind of renewal that every year we do it and we push it out another year, or it's put to the board for consideration. Normally we would have done that a little bit before the eval process, but I thought maybe this board would want to do it as part of that. Ultimately, the decision is you extend this particular aspect of our agreement, and it essentially says that you're extending me to the 3rd year, and each year that you extend me to the 3rd year, it's kind of an understanding that you want me to hang around, kind of thing. And that's sort of, that's part of the process, but sometimes happens before all of this. And I thought you probably want it to happen during this, which I'll talk to the chair, vice chair, and whoever else you're dealing with on that, to give you a sense of what that is, because we'll be probably talking about that June 10th in the executive session. And so by July 8th, the Board of Education would then have a determination as to what happens next with respect to that aspect of the contract. So that's how this generally plays out in a timeline. I would be preparing documentation and information for the board for June 10th. That would be the next step. And I would be talking to chair and vice chair about this form, transferring ownership of the form, and just doing a quick tutorial on how you would access information with the form. And so that's essentially where we would go next with all of this. But this is the reworking of the timeline to extend it further into the summer, as we discussed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. Did anyone have any questions in terms of the timeline? I see Christina has her hand raised.
Yeah, just one clarification. I thought the original doodle poll, which I'll be honest, I didn't fill out, was to get special dates so that we could have an executive session for the evaluation. Because I see the June 24th, that was what we were trying to avoid, having the goal setting session and the evaluation on the same day.
My impression of the gathering of dates was to gather dates of availability for the board for goal setting and for all of it.
Okay.
for what you wanted to do, not specifically evaluation, even though some of you may have also used it for maybe that too, but I was gathering all dates with your maximum availability for your use for whatever you wanted it to be, but I thought most of it was going to be goals.
Okay, so I guess the only problem I have with the timeline is I wouldn't want that executive session, because I feel like that's probably the most important for you, Dr. Willett, to just be on a separate day from goals.
I would agree with that one.
So I don't know if that week we could just pull for a special executive session.
I will do whatever you want with that. Yep. I mean, the doodle poll.
I'm throwing it out there. It could be the
Yeah, no. And I know the doodle poll went over like a lead balloon, but usually what's good about that is just getting a maximum availability, even though it was tedious. I know. I think with Jen, when she is able to get back the information that's out there as a request, she'll provide a series of dates that we can select, from for a variety of purposes, including if you want a separate date to do this. We can set up a special meeting executive session for that. I just, for my own planning purposes, I just want to have a sense of when that date is, because it does take time to put together that initial block of stuff to look at. And I would just need to have some knowledge of how that lines up with the rest of the stuff going on in June, because as you know, there's a lot going to be going on during that particular span of time. So I just need to know mentally when my time to have that available or ready is. So maybe if Jen pulls it, is able to get people's feedback on that, she'll be able to do that. And if you want, we can pick something from there.
Okay, I was just throwing that out there.
Sure.
And I would agree with your report on that. I don't think that's fair to you for having, the first session for having that 24th with the goal setting and then having the executive session. I just feel like you should have your own time. I don't think that's fair.
All right. So we'll be working on a special session for that one, and I'll be talking to Jen to offer special session dates. For that. Okay. Okay.
And Jacob.
Okay. So a couple quick things. So the first one, I was just wanting to know for the action section of this chart, is this finalized, or can you still play around with any of this? And if so, when would we have that all finalized?
I'm sorry, which part of it are you asking? I apologize.
Just the action column, like
well, I mean, this is more or less the process that has been in place. It's typically mutually agreed upon at the beginning of a year, which this board wasn't all in place at that time. It was the other board, but you typically agree on process at the beginning of a year, between superintendent and chair, co-chair. So this is more or less the process that we've had that's rolled forward. I can help maybe if there's something else, but this is typically what we go ahead and do under mutual agreement.
Okay. All right. And my second point was just, and I've never done one of these before, but because it is such an important task for, me working with you and reviewing things, I was wondering if maybe we could try to include more of the board instead of just the chair and vice chair. It's just something I thought to bring up for people to chew on. I know it's mutually agreed upon, but that's just my feeling. I think it would be beneficial to have more of the board present for some of these steps.
Yeah, you actually, when I present this document and then ultimately when you all meet, you do talk together. The board and the chair or vice chair, they write it up, but you as a board actually do. Once you do your ratings, you ultimately, in the process of asking Q&A, things like that, and in this June, as it is written here, the June 24th date, you in executive session, you invite me in. So superintendent is invited into executive session to answer Q&A, but you can start that executive session without me to talk about that stuff prior to inviting me in. So
Okay.
you will have an opportunity to kind of kibitz on some of that stuff as a group prior to inviting me in. And then you can invite me in, ask a few questions, send me out to talk, invite me back in. So you have that discretion in executive session.
Okay, and then after that, it becomes more of a trust between the chair and the vice chair. Is that?
Yeah, they generally write it up because 9 people writing something is,
Mhm.
I think the way typically it progresses is that you've got these two individuals who are going to synthesize the broader, sense of the board. They're usually writing it up, but, typically the board will be providing not only ratings, but input, and they typically synthesize that into the document.
And that's a fair concern about having 9 people write it up. I just, going into this, I would like to make sure the Board of Education is fully on board and involved with that.
Yeah, no, I think you'll find you'll have that opportunity for sure. This does have that. Executive sessions are basically where you can talk to those things as a group.
All right, that's it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. I don't see anyone else's hand raised, so I think that we can move on to the next item.
Okay, so the next item was the ad hoc committee of discussion of creation of ad hoc committee for the reopening. And so what I did do today was send a communication to the board, anticipating where we're heading with it. The recommendation more or less to the board that we put together what I call track with the Tolland Reopening Advisory Committee. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening in the next few weeks, months. We have to absolutely have things laid down by about August 1st. Frankly, that we really operationally need that. And I'm already involved with a very large, very, very numerous meetings on this with a variety of different groups. And so we have many, many things with respect to planning that we're doing. But this particular kind of committee, which is a model that's being used elsewhere as well, the advisory concept has in it the Board of Education, community members, it would include maybe towns, staff, parents and guardians, student representatives, school administration, and staff representation. So the committee functions in an advisory group back and forward. Obviously, they could take in information from curriculum and PDEC and FFC and others. They can ask a series of questions while we're going through the process and get articulations. And then ultimately, they would be a very important part of communication as we push and put information out to the community on the website, things like that. Questions may be circling that this group might want to talk about and chew on, and we can, further articulate some of the reasoning for doing X, Y, or Z with this group, and this group can play a pivotal role in, helping in that interaction with the community as we're moving forward, and giving the community an opportunity through these representatives to ask some of the most concerning questions and get information. So this, I think, works in a way that it gives you a maximum flexibility and allows us to be able to meet even without going through a lot of the scaffolding necessary by having something be an ad hoc. So this would be an advisory committee, and it would be an administrative committee of the school district rather than an ad hoc committee of the board that would require postings and all the extensive process that a ad hoc, kind of committee would require. We are going to need to be able to work on this intensively and fairly quickly, so we could pull meetings together expeditiously without going through a lot of the other stuff that might actually be much harder to manage.
I just had a couple of quick questions. First of all, for the Board of Education, it says to be determined, and it says Board of Ed Chair. Honestly, to me personally, I think that Christina Plord she kind of brought up the whole thing about creating an ad hoc, even though this isn't an ad hoc. I definitely like to see her on there. Mm-hmm. I definitely would like another member, and I'm just going to call her out and see if she wants to do it. But you know, everyone, I saw this earlier, just thinking about it through. And the other person who I'd like to put in there would actually be Rini. I think that she is, she's very objective when it comes to a lot of things. And I thought about what everyone's plate is is currently. So I don't know if that would be something that would be beneficial to have the two board members on there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I don't mind. It's just an example of, you know, as I was writing it up quickly, whatever people felt.
Rini, would you have anything to say?
I would like to be on the committee. Thank you for thinking of me. I would like to do it.
Perfect. Plord, I'm assuming since you were the first initial go-getter.
I'm very passionate about the schools opening their doors, so I would love to be on it. So thank you. And I like the setup. I think it has a lot of stakeholders, and I appreciate the effort, Walt.
Thank you.
So as far as I'm concerned, that was just what I envisioned when I was reading this earlier. You're just kind of going through. I mean, I like that you have Mike Rosen on there. I thought the student rep, in terms, I'm assuming that we're going to get our new student rep coming in as well. So I thought that this was good. I thought this was a good idea. And, you know, those are just some of the thoughts that I had.
Guys, I have my hand up. I was trying to be nice. This is Kate HB. I'd like to also be on this committee.
Oh, I didn't scroll up. There we go. Okay, and there was Karen has her hand up. Where's Karen? Karen, there.
I'm here. You have me? Okay. I was just wondering, it seems like it was already set as far as who is going to be on the committee for board members. I'm just curious why we didn't, why any of us weren't asked ahead of time.
Well, first of all, I thought Plord was definitely one of those that first brought up the whole ad hoc. I know Rini had showed a little interest, but then I was thinking about, you know, curriculum committee and Birch Grove and graduation task force and policy. I was going through like everyone. So that's why I thought, I'm like, negotiations haven't had much. So that's where I kind of was in my head. That was it. There was nothing else to it.
Yeah, the challenge, just throw it out there, challenge is the more board members you have, the closer it comes to an official meeting is the only thing. So maybe even trading, you know, one time, one another, things like that. But that's the only other consideration. 2 is a number that you would not necessarily be in that situation with, but as you get higher in there, it's, you know, that's the conundrum on that one.
I wasn't really finished. Can I continue?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No.
So
I just think that a committee like this should be handled internally through our staff. It involves a lot of work that they need to do to be prepared in a way they've never had to do before. Whether it's facilities, administrators, curriculum planning, teachers, nurses, special ed, or even summer school. We're not the experts to give it proper focus. I appreciate, you know, Dr. Willett putting that aspect of it in there. I just think the superintendent needs to be allowed to do his job of operating the district. And he would report back to the entire board anyway. And the board will then have a thorough assessment of any immediate and future needs going forward with a continued focus on the experience and education of our Tolland children. But let our staff do their work and let Dr. Willett lead because he can do it incredibly well if allowed. So I just think that this is going to be a lot of meetings. It's another scheduling thing to be done. So that's just my take on it.
To follow up with Karen, she does have a very good point about having a nurse on there. Would that be a part of the school administration?
Yeah. When I use it sort of, we do have a director, we would have a director of nursing as sort of a quasi admin. That job is a stipend job, but that would be, in my mind, that is a administration position.
Oh, perfect.
I didn't mean to take Kate's time. I'm not sure that she was done. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Go ahead, Kate.
All is well. So I am concerned, given the fact that this is part of my, I don't know, my real life too. Not this is fake because this is very real, but I would be concerned and that we take up more of the time with administrivia and committees. I want to be on it because this is an area of expertise for me, given that I'm doing it right now. And I think that I could have a lot to offer. But I also think that the more we kind of hamstring Dr. Willett and his capable staff, then, it just will slow things down and then our kids can really suffer. So I would much prefer, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels about this, I would much prefer to ask Dr. Willett to give us a regular update on what is happening with reopening efforts. I would much prefer that because then I feel like we can free him up to do his job. And then we also know what's going on, which I we all want to know what's going on. It affects us, to the heart. So that's what I would prefer to not have a committee because I want you guys to be able to do your work, and instead just ask for regular updates.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you that you will get a lot of updates from me over the summer about this. Just in general, you will receive a lot because this is going to be, one of probably the most focused summers I've ever had. Most busy summers I have ever had. I don't think that there'll be a minute to spare, from the standpoint of things that have to get done. So you'll be receiving a constant flow of info about what's going on with this. And the only reason I actually have not at this moment is gone strictly into this is that we are still asking as superintendents for certain clarifying points that we feel we will be getting fairly soon. And once we get them, it's just going to roll. It's going to roll from there, from the standpoint of information.
Right.
Adjustments, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Tony.
Now, first, let me thank Dr. Willett for putting this together. I think, especially given the importance and the pace that this summer is going to be, the existence of this committee and helping bring information back and kind of bringing the opinion and the thoughts of the board into this activities is going to be critical. I think my only question for Dr. Willett and Ashley there is if this is a special meeting or a special committee of the board, then and Ashley as chair and Dr. Willett are already members. Is there a benefit in having Dr. Willett as the chair as opposed to an automatic member?
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand what you're asking, Tony, but what I would say is I would chair this committee as an administrative committee. So it would be like, it would be the equivalent of the portrait of a graduate work when we did that and board members came to participate in it. They were an integral part. But the person that is chairing it in this case as an administrative committee is me. But what that gives us is agility because we will be able to function in a very agile manner. And because of the nature of this, it's probably going to be of primary importance that we can function in an agile manner. I think it'll provide information in all directions, but we can provide, we can function fairly, agile, in an agile way. But it is, anything that we do here is going to be putting a layer on process that I will be doing for the board and in in a general sense is I will be providing lots of information for you to talk about. If you keep all the board meetings in the summer intact, this will be an agenda item on every single board meeting. Starting in June 10, all the way through, this is going to be an agenda item on superintendent's agenda, because it's going to be something that you will be receiving, committee or no committee, you'll be receiving information about and we'll be talking about. But in this case, this is an administrative committee chaired by the superintendent.
Got it. I missed the administrative part of that. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. Plord.
So just to go back, since I had asked for this originally as an ad hoc, I didn't know we had the opportunity to set it up as administrative, and I actually prefer this setup because I do believe Dr. Willett's the expert in this case with what's coming down from the state. I like all the stakeholders. I do have to say my original suggestion, if this committee can work in conjunction with the curriculum committee, because Kate has her expertise in that area. She's also working on opening up her own schools. I do support having Rini on this particular committee, though, in the sense that she is objective. I know sometimes I might be a little bit more passionate about this in the sense that I want Lee to start kindergarten physically in the school. So, she might be able to help me remove some of the emotion from that. But no, I'm definitely passionate about this. I want the committee. Kate, in all fairness, you said you didn't really want the committee, so I definitely think that Rini and I want to help and want to be on it. So I'm going to advocate for that.
And if this committee is voted in, then I want to be on it because I think that I could be helpful. So that is my thing. I don't not want to be part of it. This is about working together. So there's that.
Yeah. What I would say, you could alternate. One of the other things, I'm just throwing things out there, but just as an aside, I'll give you an example, but I don't want people to react, too much to it, because again, it's all in flux. But one of the plans that I heard was all elementary, and elementary is to be defined at some point in the future as they discuss it, but that all elementary would be back 4 days a week. This isn't something we get to decide. This is something they will tell us. And then it's on the staff that are working for you to work that out. You know what I mean? To make that happen. And then of course, so this committee will have a lot of, well, what about? And we can talk to it, answer it, get people feeling more comfortable. Again, I will be literally reporting out, I believe, at every single board meeting on this because it's just going to be such a part of the summer, but we're going to be handed things we have to do. And then we're looking at how we make that work. And so that'll be a lot of how this gets handed to us from the state. So that's the context in which something would be in there, and we would be saying, here's what our plan is, and we want to take into account X and Y and Z, and and this group would be fielding questions and throwing them out there to get to a level of comfort with it. And the students might say, well, what am I going to do about this and that? And I would bring back answers and help, provide comfort with that or can help inform. So the committee would be something that would be meeting probably every week. And, I'd be basically giving them what this week's update was. And then we would be doing a very similar thing at that board meeting is I'd be talking about what the update was, plus the proceedings of some of the things that happened in the administrative committee, as well as with the admin groups and other staff groups as we work through it. So that's the context of how this kind of thing plays with something like this, where the state will be deciding things and then pretty much telling us, you gotta, good luck. Here's how you're going to make it work. Or go ahead and you got to figure out how to make it work, kind of thing. And that figuring it out part is what you've hired me for, that kind of thing. And then, and then we work through it. But people will have all kinds of questions and process, and I want to be available to them to help cover those, answer those, and get everybody what they need.
Perfect. Plord, did you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. I like the way it's set up. I know the updates will come at board meetings, but I think this will give a deeper dive. And I do think that, sometimes the state gives direction that isn't right for Tolland, case in point, say with graduation. So I think this will serve as a sounding board for if we need to go to the state with any advocacy as well.
Okay. Let's go to Jacob next.
Thank you, Ashley. So I do support this committee as well. I think this is just such a huge, important issue that I would almost feel that the board and the school system would be negligent if it didn't create this sort of committee. I like the general setup. I agree with what's been said. I think 2 board members would be better than 1. Also, just a quick note, I think that by having this committee, it'll allow us to have a bit more transparency up on this very important issue. I'm glad the idea of having a website that'll provide updates is a good idea. I just personally have been a little upset with how the state's handled it as far as being kind of opaque with things. And I think by having this sort of committee, Tolland schools can do one better. That's it.
Okay. Rini.
So I wanted to thank Dr. Willa for putting this together, but I did want to point out that Dr. Willett is the one that is suggesting that we have some Board of Education members on the committee. So I don't think anybody would be looking to hamstring or, weigh down the committee. I think it's always good for the Board of Education to really understand certainly something this large. And while I understand that Dr. Willett is going to bring the information back to the board, it's always good to have a couple people who are, maybe in, a little bit deeper than just the board updates. I feel for myself that I am objective. I don't have a child in the school. I have coming up on closing, my 5th year as being on a Board of Education. I don't work for the district or a school district. So I just feel that, that can be good from an objective standpoint. And I appreciate the opportunity. I will say that although I didn't necessarily say it at a board meeting, I've been thinking about this for a long time, that we would need to have some kind of opening plan and probably a committee, and that we would be working on it over the summer. So I would appreciate an opportunity to participate in that way. So that was all.
Okay, thank you, Rini. Dana.
Sorry, hi. A couple things. First of all, thank you, Dr. Willett, for, kind of giving us the guidelines on this. So I appreciate that. I definitely agree that if there is going to be a committee of some sort, that we should have members of the board on it. However, I think three board members would be better than 2. I think having a board member that's expert, one of the experts in education, and having a board member who's actually really living this day in, day out with their own school, I think that we would be negligent in not having that person on the committee. I also think it's paramount to have board members who are familiar with our schools, who are familiar with, have either had or have children within the Tolland school system. I think that, having Kate on the board could increase that visibility as well, being that she's had students in at least 2 of our schools and works in a high school. And Christina, like you, I want my children to walk through those front doors of Birch Grove next year, as well as I'm sure most families in town want to have their kids go back to school. I think we just need to be, we need to be acutely aware of what the state guidelines are and what those are. I would also be concerned with the guidelines that I'm currently reading from the CDC and the state, that Birch Grove portables in its current capacity would not be compliant in the majority of the requirements due to the actual size of the classrooms and the hallways and the access points and such. So that needs to be considered. I would also be cognizant, Dr. Willett has been pretty transparent with the majority of, all of his communications, specifically his daily updates through this COVID-19 continuity of learning. He's been so transparent that some people have said it's been too much communication. So I feel comfortable that whether or not we had this committee or didn't have this committee, that he would be transparent and would be consistent and concise with his communication. And I think that's all that I had. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And let's go to Kate.
Thank you. Just wanted to have a quick point of clarification. I'm pretty sure that Dr. Willett put this on the agenda because he works for the Board of Education, and the Board of Education chair and vice chair asked him for it. So I'm guessing that this action item is on there because he was asked to put it on there, and this is his response to, make it actionable. So, he didn't choose to put it on there. He works for us and we asked him to. I also want to address transparency. I'm tired of that word. I just got to say it. I'm tired of that word. Anybody who says that Dr. Willett is not being transparent in all of his doings is just really not paying attention and not doing homework. And that may seem kind of harsh, and I apologize if it is, but I'm honestly like, come on, guys, come on. Let's breathe and let's help the district to open back up for our kids and our families. That's what we got to do. That's what we have to do. That's what we were elected for. We didn't know what we were getting into when we got into this specifically, but now we're in it. And our kids are suffering, our families are suffering, our teachers are suffering, and we have to work together to get through this. And so that's all I would like to say. I appreciate all of the effort and the care that you guys are putting into this. I just want us to make sure that we're all keeping everything right-sized. Thank you.
And just to respond to that, Kate, the ad hoc was brought up the last meeting is when Plore brought that up, and I don't believe that you were there, but this is Dr. Willett had already stated, this was his kind of answer to the ad hoc when she wanted to create that committee last meeting.
Okay, I appreciate that.
No problem. I know it was a meeting that you had missed, so that's why I just wanted to bring that up. Okay, Griffin?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I also support the committee. I thought it was a good idea when we talked about it last time. And as far as the members, I think something to look at is, Dr. Willett specifically has on here that will interface with a variety of committees within the district. So I do feel like, Kate is going to get her time to talk as far as the curriculum committee chair, just as I will get the time to talk as the FFC chair. So I think we're all going to be involved in this committee in some way, shape, or form. So, as far as myself and Kate, we will have the opportunity. So, I can see where, Christina, obviously, and Rainey would also be good additions to it. So that's just my 2 cents, that I don't think anybody's going to be left out. I mean, I know I've been doing a ton of stuff from the FFC angle, and I will be happy to kind of be involved with it as far as that's concerned as well. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that has their hand up that would like to speak to this? Rini, is that a new hand or is that an old hand? Okay. Kate? You still have your hand up, or?
Oh yeah, I like, use me. Like, I know stuff. Like, use me. I'm not afraid of more time. Like, this is what I care about. Education is what I do. So, I'm not afraid of more time. I'm not afraid of more efforts. Like, if it benefits our kids and our society and our schools, then that's it. So I don't appreciate the fact that, Christine, you dequalified me from this. So I just want to put that out there.
Can I just answer Kate on that? I don't think I dequalified you. I just said that as curriculum committee chairperson, you will certainly be involved in this, just as I will probably be as FFC chairperson. I'm just saying that there's plenty of room for everybody to be involved. I don't think we have to say that only the people who are specifically on this committee are the ones who are going to be involved. Just as with anything else, I think we all have a lot to bring to the table for all different aspects. So that's all I was saying. I'm certainly not trying to devalue you as an educator.
But I would like to be able to speak for myself, and that's all I'm asking, and I appreciate that.
Let's go to Dana.
I just think that we need to think objectively and be as open-minded as possible. And I think that we have 3 board members who seem, whether they knew that they were going to be elected to it, like tonight, Reedy, but I'm listening to the 3 of them speak. They all feel very strongly about, their roles that they could bring to this committee. And I think it would be a win-win if you have people that are so passionate about different aspects of this. And as we've said that a lot of people can bring different things to the table. I mean, I know some of us have changed committees or talked about being on committees or were overextended because of committees. Now we have 3 people that are like willing to say, pick me. I'd be remiss if we didn't pick us.
I'll play the lotto.
Right.
I know, don't pick me. But I'm saying, but we have 3 people that really want to do it. And I think, getting those kids through those front doors next year in whatever way that looks, whether it's be physically, distance learning or partially, I think having 3 people that are just as passionate that they want to be on this, I think would be remiss if we didn't do that.
So to kind of help here, as an administrative committee, and I put together administrative committees all the time, you don't have to necessarily make official appointments as much as just have a gentle person's agreement among ourselves that not more than X number of people show up at a time, because that's when it starts to get complicated. So, if moving forward, if it helps that you have maybe 3, you don't have to vote on the creation of this committee, because I create these committees all the time in service of the district and the board. So this would be the one I would be creating in service of the district and the board for reopening, called the Tolland Reopening Advisory Committee. And if it moves us forward, obviously we can work with membership, the board component of that, like when we had Portrait of a Graduate, we could have the board members participate, and 2 is ideal, but 3 we can probably work with that, if that would help keep everything moving.
Perfect. And I just wanted to point out, Dana, you have a school to build for us, so that's why you weren't put on there.
I probably would have declined. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Okay, and Rini? Okay, maybe this is the hand.
Is my hand is not up anymore, is it?
It was, yes.
Oh, I thought I put it down. I'm sorry.
Okay, and Karen?
Yeah, I'm just, not to add fuel to the fire, but I'm a little insulted that I wasn't considered, because I have 6+ years on this Tolland Board of Education. I have had and still do have 2 children in the school system. I don't think objectiveness has anything to do with it, since the state's going to be telling us what we have to do. So I'm just going to put that out there.
And that's fine. But for me, I thought about you and Christine doing the graduation task force. So I just was like, you know what? I think everyone has their plates full. So I kind of was trying to think about, first of all, Florida was the one who really wants this. So that was, I saw the Board of Ed chair on there and I was like, yeah, no, let's go ahead and put Florida in that one. And then I thought, maybe having 2. And then I thought, negotiations, no offense, Rini, but you haven't really been too busy.
Thanks a lot.
Well, that'll change. Don't get too comfortable. That one will change.
But those were just the thoughts that I had in my head. That I'm like, you guys got graduation, we got all these things going on, and so I really just wanted.
Fine. I'm good. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, that's just where my head was at. So if you're good with having the 3, Dr. Willett, then let's just do that with that. And I'm assuming for the rest of the people, you will come up.
Yes.
And
yeah, we're gonna get that moving.
Have a list. Now, is it a problem if Mike Rosen is on there with board members and?
No, because he's not an elected, the rest of us are all pretty much either parents, guardians, or workers
Okay.
and students and all that. So that should work out fine. And, it may even be that there may be another person that he would want on there just to keep the town informed. So.
Okay. And even if it is an appointed town council member, we're still in the clear, right? With the 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to stick to workers, students, or guardians after this, because that's the core sort of. But the objective behind it is to include community, to get the community in its various forms in, and working flexibly and and that kind of thing.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then we're good. Let's go to H5.
Okay. So this is just a quick item, as we had talked about before. I may have mentioned before. We are heading into the final planning for what I call the locker recovery and return accountabilities. So you should, and the district will be getting information about this as we finalize it in the next few days and week. But in short, the week of June 8th, Birch Grove, Tolland Intermediate, and Tolland Middle School students and families will have the opportunity to, in very small, socially distanced, very well-planned and approved groups by the EHHD, enter the school to clear out their child's lockers and return anything they need to return. So essentially, we'll be letting groups come in. They'll have 30 minutes. Basically, they'll have 20 minutes to go to the locker, get the things, and they have 10 minutes to exit, and we'll be carefully policing it. So a slot might be from 9 to 9:30. We'll have a sign-up genius posted out to the community and to the parents' guardians. The parents' guardians will jump on and sign up for slots, and they come during their designated time. And they'll come with a very small, they won't know probably how, who else is in the group because they'll be signing up, but it'll be a very small number of people allowed into the building at a certain time over a span of days of that week. And they will be able to go to the locker, access it, and have a 10-minute period of transition where they have to exit the building before the next small group enters. So we're going to be following all the social distancing guidelines and requirements. And so I'll be putting out information likely early next week or mid next week about week of June 8th for Birch Grove, Tolland Intermediate, and Tolland Middle. And then most of this will happen at the high school on the 15th, even though some of it is graduation related, might be happening a little bit earlier from the standpoint of some of the kids, young adults who need to get in there too for the older kids. But for most families, you'll see that for Birch Grove, Tolland Intermediate, Tolland Middle, it'll be happening the week of June 8th. And for the high school, mostly for most of the other classes, it's the week of June 15th. The sophomores and freshmen at the high school will be handled in a similar way of signups and things like that, because they need transportation from their parents to get there, most of them. But juniors and seniors will get a little bit more flexibility, but they'll still be greatly limited to a certain time slots. Again, because we have to live up to the social distancing requirements and the other requirements from the state on occupancy and how many people can be in a place at a certain amount of time. So this information will be coming out shortly, likely at the beginning of next week, like I said, or mid. People will be able to sign up, and we will be able to get people in to get stuff out of their lockers and return things.
Good plan.
Sure.
Anyone have any questions with that? Karen?
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay. And Fisher? Fisher, you're graduating. Whatever's in your locker, forget about it.
I've got a Berkeley magnet in there. I can't leave that behind. My question was just specific. Speaking of music, as a band student, we also have like the band lockers in the band room.
Yeah.
Is there going to be access to those? Because I know I have like sheet music back there.
Yes, definitely. Yes, you'll have that. You'll have a block of time to go to your lockers.
Okay, awesome.
You will
Just
have,
wanted to clarify that.
definitely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Willett.
No problem. No problem. I understand.
Okay, we're good. Let's go to H6.
Okay, so this is what I've been, prattling on about. There is a instructional rounds opportunity for board members. Obviously, we cannot do this in person. I would have much preferred to have you come in and observe the teachers, much the way we did at TIS instructional rounds. But we're going to make this a great virtual experience. There'll be a video of students and interactions, things that are going on prior to COVID, because this was part of the one-to-one project, was research and the creation of some videos and things like that. So there'll be some video footage to review. There'll be a presentation involved, and then most valuably, there will be a panel of teachers that you can interact with directly. So it'll be about an hour, because as you may recall, these instructional rounds that are physically happening typically last a half day or even an entire day. They have a morning, they have the morning, then the classroom visits, and then the afternoon debrief. This, because we can't do it that way, will be about an hour. It'll be video, presentation, and then interaction for about 40 minutes with the panel. But it'll be a great opportunity to probe and to ask and to talk to the people that are doing this job and can speak to the real intricate aspects of one-to-one and how it's different from, say, online, say, learning or something like that. How, what's similar, but what's different about it too. So it's a great opportunity, and I hope board members can be a part of that. I am going to send out a request after the meeting asking who would like to be involved, and then you will get the Zoom information and we'll go from there. But I did want to get it on your calendars, just put it out there officially. June 11th at 2 p.m. is when we would be doing it.
Okay, perfect. Anyone have any questions in regards to that? Okay, it looks like we're good.
I just want to say thank you very quickly.
Oh, okay. Let's go to the committee and liaison reports. Kate, can you please provide us with the first curriculum committee report?
Absolutely. So we met, it seems like a long time ago, and I was in my car. So we met and we talked about kind of what curriculum is. We talked about what folks are interested in looking at in terms of curriculum. And we talked about mastery learning. We talked about what those are. We asked Dr. Willett to come up with some resources for us to use as our kind of touch points. And the basic common desire that we came out of was to start exploring what Tolland's procedures and approaches to curriculum are, which is going to get even more interesting because we are going to be working, we're going to be thinking about what we're doing with the switch to online learning. So the minutes are up, and for our next committee meeting, we're going to come and we're going to talk more about Tolland Mastery, the learning plan, and we're also going to read and review the Tolland math standards, because whenever you're writing curriculum, you always start with the standards first and then build out from there. So it was a really great meeting, and I really appreciated the discussions that we had. So that's it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kate.
Certainly.
Let's go to Dana. You got your Birch Grove notes. I know that we have a meeting tomorrow. You have it at 6:30, and Costa is going to give you more answers, but you want to just give a little something now?
Yeah. Well, first, before it's 9:49, and I know that we have a few more things, and then before public participation. So I don't know if we want to make a motion to go past 10.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion if someone would like to make that.
Oh, sure.
Kate Howard Bender, moving to go past 10.
All right, go ahead, Kate.
Oh, sorry. Okay, moving to go past 10.
Dana,
you're in.
Sorry.
There are literally crickets. Can you hear that?
I know.
Is that like a joke? Did somebody do that?
I said Dave second, but I think someone else did as well. So either way.
Then let's do discussion. So Lisa, just to clarify, Kate did the motion, Dana did a second, and we're moving along. Any discussion, any hand raise, anything? Let's go ahead and say aye if you're for it, nay if you're opposed or abstained. Plord,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Greenie,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
Aye, so we will move our meeting past 10 o'clock, but hopefully we can still wrap it up kind of quickly. So back to Dana.
Sorry. No, yeah, we have our meeting tomorrow. We did meet with the group and went over GMP, gross maximum price, talked about unsuitable soils, talked about some steel, opportunities for the state, more different reimbursement aspects if it went over the 46 million, which obviously that's not the goal. But yes, we have a meeting with Costa with some more cost saving measures and such to kind of push forward that. And that is tomorrow. So at our next meeting, I'll probably have a little bit more detail and concrete facts. I will say that they continue to progress and they're right on target where they're supposed to be. So the timeline is still super crucial and they're sticking to that at this point. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's go to Griffin. Do you want to touch base on FFC and graduation?
Sure. So FFC, we met last Wednesday, May 20th. We actually kind of went through everything on May 21st at the joint meeting, so I don't really have anything new. So in the essence of time, I will put that one away. As far as the graduation committee or the task force, our first meeting is scheduled for June 1st, and I think we are all very excited. We did get sort of good news. At least the state of New Jersey and the state of Massachusetts have now allowed outdoor, in-person, socially distanced graduations. So we are, kind of keeping our fingers crossed that our governor will soon follow suit, but we'll be discussing any and all options for a July celebration starting on Monday. That's all I got.
Perfect. Let's go to Karen. Did you have communications?
No, communications didn't have anything, but we'll probably have something scheduled for our next meeting. So we'll meet, I think it's June, our first meeting in June. We usually schedule it right before that. And I attended the town council meeting last night. It was lengthy, but I stuck with it till after 11 o'clock.
Wait a minute, the town council went past 11 o'clock.
It was yeah, it's a long one. They had a public hearing and approved a resolution to adopt an ordinance establishing a commission on people with disabilities. They had a COVID update with Director Miller from the Eastern Highland Health District. And town manager went over his budget considerations again, and they set the public hearing for June 2nd for his to discuss the budget. He was very thankful to his staff and working very well with Dr. Willett on everything that's been done to prepare for next year. Let's see what else. Ag Commission, an item for the Ag Commission, and they just had an extensive conversation about a flag policy. So I think there's some research they're doing on other towns' policies and what that might look like. What might that look like for Tolland? And they also talked about a proclamation policy and how they do proclamations and the history behind it. And they also they approved a resolution for the bid waiver to purchase heating oil from Dime Oil for July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and as well as gasoline for the period of January 2021 through December 2021. So those were the big things that they talked about last night, and it took a while, but it was good.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Karen. Okay. And then we have policy. Tony?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Policy Committee met this evening at 6 o'clock. We had an interesting discussion on the civility policy that we've been kind of bouncing around. We're going line by line through a draft policy and just kind of discussing the potential, the necessity, and the potential ramifications. That policy discussion will continue into the next meeting. We had just a quick talk on ensuring that our tracker that we've mentioned before is complete, where we can do the prioritization. I owe Dr. Willett some email traffic that I've seen just to make sure that our compliance policies list is ready. I want to bring to the board again, if you have any policies that you feel the committee should review, please send that to me so I can make sure that it gets on our list for tracking. Based on our earlier conversation, I took a look at 3040. Thank you, Dr. Willett and Kate, for pointing that out. It looks like the last time it was touched was roughly 10 years before the first Chromebook shipped, and simply says that it will be sent to the town manager for appropriate disposal. So I'll add that to our list and we can discuss that and see if it needs to be tweaked a bit before it happens.
Yeah, there are some, just to add to that, I didn't go into it tonight because there are town requirements for that. So like we have a policy on it, but then there are town aspects. So the complete picture, I'll give you the complete picture.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Offline, yeah.
It's got to be Tony. Tony, you have the crickets. We found them.
I live in the cricket area of Tolland.
Okay, not making it up. So I think, did I miss anybody? I think I covered everyone's liaison reports and committees, correct? I'm not thinking I missed anyone. I do not have a chairperson's report. Been crazy busy. Let's go to board action K1 for the policy 5010.
Yeah.
So Christina Plord, I'd like to make a motion to approve changes to policy 5010 as presented in the Board of Education meeting for the second read for May 27th, 2020. Or is it the last meeting?
No, it's good. It's this one too. You're good.
Okay.
Tony Holt, second.
Okay, let's do a discussion. Does anyone want to raise their hand and have any discussion about this? If not, we will do a roll call vote. I don't see anyone hands up, so let's go ahead. Christina, Lord?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Greenie?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that passes unanimously for the changes to the policy 5010. Okay. Now we will go to public participation. We will have a 2-minute time limit. If any member of the public would like to speak, please raise your hand or *9. And Tony will be keeping the 2 minutes and he will give you 30 seconds when that comes up. This time, would any members of the public like to speak? Okay, we have Colleen. Let's go to Colleen.
It's a great idea on the school reopening committee. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, just something came up. No, I think that's a great idea. I just want to put it out there as a parent. I would definitely be interested in serving on that committee if possible. And then I saw that Ms. Fox is leaving Tolland, and I was just, I'm sorry to see that, but I was just wondering if the hiring process has started yet. And lastly, I'm glad there was such a good, robust conversation on technology. It's definitely needed in our district. And I'm glad to hear that sounds like you all are in full support of it. That's it.
Hey, thank you very much, Colleen. Would anyone else like to speak at this time? Oh, Jaden?
Hey guys, Jaden Regisford, 68 Old Stafford Road. Colleen just mentioned Mrs. Fox, and I sort of just had to step in here for a second because Mrs. Fox has changed a lot of kids' lives for the better without them even knowing it. And so there's a lot of opinion on Mrs. Fox and whether she was good or bad or this and that. And I got to say, I would really love to see some bipartisan support toward Mrs. Fox in some sort of way as a board or something, because she did a lot for me personally when I went through some incidents, racist incidents, in fact, in Tolland. And so, I mean, just that alone, adding to the amount she's done for so many other kids, whether it's attending DECA trips to support the kids that made it to the international level or not, no matter who she supported. I just think there should be some sort of, you know, I don't really know what you can do, frankly, but I just think there should be some sort of clearance that Mrs. Fox is not, you know, some sort of bad person or this and that. And so I'd appreciate any board support towards something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaden. Let's go to Michelle. Harold?
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Michelle Harold, 256 Mountain Spring Road. And I just, I can't wait for you guys to hear the how beneficial the one-to-one technology has been for the sixth graders. I have a sixth grader, and I'm telling you, the transition to distance learning for her was amazing. She's so independent, and she can just go about her day. And I have a second and a fourth grader also, and it is not the same. And they're using different devices because I only have the one Chromebook that she has. So we're just kind of scrambling ourselves, and it's not sustainable. And so for my family, I either am going to have to need to borrow Chromebooks next year, or I'm going to have to buy my own Chromebooks. And so I hope that you make that decision soon enough that I can, if I do need to purchase them for myself, that it can be made in time before school is to start. But I do hope you change your mind and you're able to see the benefits across the board, even if we don't do distance learning, of how they're used now in school and how they could even benefit the younger kids, the younger learners. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak at this moment of time? I'm not seeing any other hands raised. I don't want to. I think we're good. I know it came up. I know it's something that about Mrs. Fox. Dr. Will, I don't know if you could speak to it because I don't even know if we received the official resignation.
I have not received, not yet.
Okay, and so just in case anyone's wondering why there has not been any announcements, because we don't even have, but I do understand that, you know, they had a Board of Ed meeting in Vernon, and I think
I mean, basically every other bit of information suggests that is the case. And yes, we will have a process. I'll be articulating a lot of information about that. But right at this time, we're still waiting for an official confirmation of that. Although it is obvious that is coming. but yes, we're waiting for that.
It was a little, you know, taken back when I got the call this morning, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that, so thank you.
Right.
I do see that Liz has her hand up, so if we could go back to just give Liz her opportunity for her 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, Ashley. I couldn't. It wouldn't click. Sorry.
Technical difficulties, Liz.
Little technical difficulty. First of all, thank you all for the robust discussion. I really appreciate it, especially around a one-to-one education. And I would just ask you to really consider. And Christine Plord, with due respect to your son going to school, it's not like sitting in front of an iPad or a TV or. It's different. It's the learning tool, and I think, quite candidly, Tolland's pretty far behind relative to other school systems in the area on one-to-one education. It is the way kids learn. And if you look at what's coming down the pipe with AI and all the other things coming down the pipe, it's really, really important that we get Tolland students up to speed on technology, but also learning and self-learning. It's important that our teachers teach our children, but it's important that children learn how to learn on their own as well. And I think the technology helps that, and it helps that. And then thank you for including Mrs. Howard Bender on that committee. I think she will bring tremendous experience, as well as potential of sharing ideas from her school community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz. Was there any other points of information, just to jump back to that, Dr. Willett, if you had?
I don't think there was anything directly to respond to there ultimately, other than the one that you brought up. And if I'm missing something, let me know.
No, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Okay, so now we can go to the future, if you want to just briefly go through anything that's pressing.
Yep, sure. I mean, rounds we're doing. There'll be a presentation on mental health when we're ready for that. And school bus, that kind of got pushed off. POG visioning, that I hope that'll become part of our conversation as we do, kind of on the 24th, I'll be talking about that. And I think the rest, we're kind of waiting for COVID to be over on a lot of things. But the Board of Ed goal setting, we're moving forward with, as you know.
Perfect. I don't believe there's any new business. So I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Jacob Mari, I motion that we adjourn this Board of Education meeting at 10:07 p.m.
Christina Plord, second.
Discussion. Does anyone have anything to say? Raise your hand. Okay, if not, that's fine. All in favor say aye. So let's go. Christina?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
My screen just kind of went down. So I just did Christina and Jacob. Karen?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I approve as well. Motion passes.
I'm an aye.
Have a good night. Tony, I love your crickets.
They're here for you.